The Minnesota Timberwolves lead wire to wire and beat the defending champion OKC Thunder for the second straight time by double digits. We'll talk about three big things in this one, including a really impressive defensive performance, out-thundering the Thunder next.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy weekend. And it's a victory Friday. The Wolves won their third straight game, their second straight against OKC. They beat them 6 weeks ago, and they led wire to wire in this one. They won by double digits. It was 12 points when it was all said and done, but it really wasn't that close. And yes, OKC was missing a couple of guys. We'll get into that. But, I mean, all the main guys, like outside of J-Dub, who they've actually been better without this year, everybody else played. Hartenstein was back for them. And this was just an impressive wall-to-wall, wire-to-wire, dominant defensive performance by the Timberwolves. And Anthony Edwards was great at the start and at the finish when they really had to put away had to quell the final Thunder uprising in the fourth quarter. Very impressive professional performance by the Timberwolves. And I don't know how many times this year we've been able to say that. Like a truly professional performance is what they turned in. We'll talk about their defensive approach. I've got three big things we'll hit right off the bat here. We'll talk a lot about Ant as well today. First, a big thank you off the top for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. All right. So the Wolves beat the Thunder back in mid-December. That was the infamous, we'll call it the famous Chris Finch from the Wolves' perspective, getting ejected early in the game. And then, of course, the fun internet narrative of things turning for the Thunder at that point. True or untrue, clearly there was some impact there, right? The Wolves won that game fairly easily after Chris Finch was ejected. Since then, J-Dub returned, and now he's out again for them. AJ Mitchell missed this game. Alex Caruso missed this game. They did get Isaiah Hartenstein back. He'd missed the last 3 or 4 weeks or so with a calf injury. So this was, they're missing a couple of rotation guys. But, I mean, earlier this year, all we were hearing about is how deep the Thunder were and how it didn't matter that J-Dub was out and all this stuff. So I don't know if we can have it both ways. But, that's the team the Wolves had in front of them. They had to beat them. Ant played second night of a back-to-back, which was, certainly up in the air, given that he didn't play. What day was that? Monday. He didn't play against Golden State on the second night of a back-to-back. And the 4 games in 5 nights for the Wolves, and everybody except Mike Conley played. And I know Ant missed one of the 4 in 5 nights, but still 3 games in 5 nights, given the toe issue that Ant's been dealing with. Obviously vital that he was able to play in this game. Mike Conley was the only rotation guy not available for Minnesota. Of course, TJ Shannon's still out. And the Wolves came out with an absolute intensity that, it was clear that this game meant more to them. And we don't need to go into the reasons why it does, but it makes sense, right? Of course, the defending champs are going to get everybody's best shot, much less, or even more so, I should say, from the team that they eliminated last year in the conference finals, from a team that their coach went to bat for them against last time out, and a team that, it makes sense, right? And the Timberwolves came out with this aggression defensively and offensively, honestly, and almost a little bit too much offensively. They missed a bunch of long through, their first 5 shots were threes. I think 8 of their first 10 shot attempts were 3-pointers, if I'm not mistaken. They made a couple free throws in there as well. But they came out swinging defensively and offensively, throwing haymakers. They were up 12 at the end of the first. They were up 13 at halftime. They stretched that lead over 20 in the third quarter, and the Thunder made it a little bit more interesting in the fourth. But then Ant kind of helped put it away. And actually, we'll get back to Ant because I want to talk about how he bookended this game really impressively. I want to start with the defensive pressure because that was the thing that was completely off the charts. It looked so much like the first couple games of that 7-game instant classic series against Denver in the second round 2 years ago, when Gilgeous-Alexander, Walker, and Jaden McDaniels were swarming Jamal Murray and others in the backcourt at the timeline, trapping him. Pickup points were an average of it felt like 94 feet, right? Not actually, but in that series, we haven't seen consistent ball pressure from Minnesota like that. We've seen it here and there. And my guess is this isn't here to stay. Like realistically, can any team do this every night? But the fact that the Wolves can do this, first of all, can they do it a little bit more often, please? Second of all, we've said it all season. The Wolves play to their competition. Remember, without Anthony Edwards, they took the Houston Rockets. They had a lead in the second half against the Rockets and easily could have and probably should have won that game. When they were in the midst of struggling, they should have beaten the Nuggets on Christmas Day and lost in overtime in an incredible Nikola Jokic performance, right? Like we could find all these performances the Wolves have put together against good teams. And this was another example of, look, Donte DiVincenzo can get into a stance and get 5 steals like he did the other night. Well, actually, no, not the other night, last night or Wednesday night, the night before the Thunder game in Dallas when he had 5 steals. And then the very next night, do a similar thing against OKC, only get credited with 2 steals, but setting the tone immediately with the steal on the first possession of the game. And getting a ton of deflections and just being active and physical and getting called for some fouls along the way. But that's the Thunder strategy, right? They can't call them all. And sure enough, the Wolves were called for 6 more personal fouls in this game. OKC did shoot a couple more free throws than Minnesota. I thought this game was very well officiated compared to the Dallas game where there were 66 combined free throws or something. The night before there were only 38 combined free throws in this game. Much more watchable, much more fun to watch. Obviously the Wolves won both games. But all that to say, the Wolves took the Thunder's game to the Thunder. And Donte DiVincenzo, I think, set the tone immediately right off the bat. Julius Randle wasn't far behind with his physicality. And I've said that, 3, 4, 5 times this season about Julius Randle's defense. Usually these guys, like the guys I have written down to talk about, Donte DiVincenzo, Julius Randle, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, about their defensive intensity. Those are the guys usually, I don't say usually, not about Jaden, but recently it feels like the opposite has been true. Like the Utah loss last week, right? It was that same list of guys that were lazy defensively, not moving their feet. There was, I forget which game, the 5-game losing streak runs together, but there was one game where the defense was just atrocious. They gave up a ton of points. The next game, the defense was a little better, but they gave up a ton of free throw attempts because they weren't moving their feet. They were grabbing and holding, and they were, quote unquote, being physical, air quotes, but not really. They were just being lazy. This game, they were legitimately physical. They were moving their feet and swiping up at the ball and keeping their hands up instead of keeping them down. Shout out Mark Jackson, hand down, man down. They were actually off the ball, putting an effort toward jumping passing lanes, denying catches, being physical both on and off the ball. Those 4 guys led the way. Rudy was also good defensively, like really to a man. The guys that played for the Timberwolves, and there were only 8 rotation players. They did not play Berringer rotation minutes. Conley did not play. I thought Jalen Clark was really good in this one. I thought Naz was fine defensively. They all played really well defensively. Very impressive stuff. And the tone was set immediately. And ultimately, like, you look at the box score, and the Wolves did turn it over more than OKC. Some of that was sloppy garbage time. Some of it was just general sloppiness later in the game when the game was mostly decided. OKC actually turned it over 4 less times than Minnesota. The Wolves only had 1 more steal than OKC, but it was more about the difficulty they created for the Thunder offensive operation. OKC wasn't getting clean looks by and large. The Wolves dodged a couple of bullets, and of course that's the book on the Thunder, is be physical, double shea when you can, and try and make somebody else make threes. And more often than not, they do. That's how they won the title last year. But look at the Pacers series in the finals versus the Wolves series in the conference finals, and the way that the role players shot the 3 in the finals last year. It's a lot like this game. They were still ended up being 35%, but Isaiah Joe was 2 of 6. Wolves will take that. Cason Wallace was 1 of 5. He's obviously a better shooter than that. Wolves will take that. I mean, Shea only attempted 2 threes. He only got to the line 5 times. He turned it over 5 times. He was a game worst, minus 22. The Wolves defended OKC the exact right way. And sometimes those shots fall. You play OKC 7 times. If you win the series, it's going to be a 6 or 7 game series. Like, you're not beating them more than, or they're not going to lose. How do I want to say that? They're not going to lose too many games because of how good SGA is. But eventually, given a large enough sample size, if you're good in those other areas, those role guys are not all such sharpshooters that they're going to beat you that way. And the Wolves tried to, they made that calculation in this game. And because they were physical enough on the ball and the help defense was good, and the low man help was good, and the defensive rebounding was good enough in this game. Okay, so he still had 11 offensive rebounds, but you can handle that. They held Hartenstein to just 3 offensive rebounds, which is good. I mean, he only played 18 minutes in his return from injury in this one. A little bit of foul trouble there. But the recipe was exactly correct for Chris Finch and the Timberwolves. 2 more of my 3 big things. We'll talk about the offense. We'll talk about Ant. We'll get into a couple other notes I have from this one, a couple things that didn't go as well for Minnesota, and we'll close with individual studs and duds. We'll do all of that here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our title sponsors at Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple. And how great would it have been to be in Target Center on Thursday for the Thunder game? That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back to where it belongs with the fans. Pulled up the game. All you got to do is pull up the Game Time app, pick an upcoming NBA game, and you'll find your tickets and get them locked in within minutes. You'll see all the prices up front. The price is actually all in up front, so you don't need to worry about hidden surprise fees later at checkout. You can also see the view from your seat. If the seat you're in really matters to you, being able to see what it's going to look like from that seat is super important. Plus, if you want to save a little bit of money, Zone Deals will help you choose the section. Game Time will pick the seats for you, and you'll save on your tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, gametime.co, not .com. The NBA trade deadline is basically here. We're 6 days away now. We want to give you a free month of the new Everydayer Club to help get you ready. If you need a group chat to keep up with the chaos, and there is chaos now with the Giannis Antetokounmpo rumors, join our Everydayer Club and join the group chat. The Everydayer Club gets you access to the group chat on Discord just for Wolves fans. Plus, you'll get access to national chats where you can hang out with fans from across the league. I'm in the Wolves. Well, actually, I'm in the Wolves and the national NBA news Locked On chat right now. Been pretty active in the Discord the last couple of weeks. Lots of Giannis talk. Along with the Everydayer Club subscription, you also get ad-free versions of this show, Locked On Wolves. And if you sign up by the trade deadline on February 5th, which is next Thursday, you can use the code DEADLINE. You'll get your first month free. Again, code DEADLINE before February 5th to get your first month free. To learn more, just tap the link in the show notes. Go to lockdownwolves.supercast.com. All right. So my first of my 3 big things is the defensive intensity, hands down. Number 2, the 3-point shooting for Minnesota. And this is, I usually don't just like pick something from the box score, but because the barrage happened so quickly and so early in this game, it's, again, set the tone. Like the combination of, hey, I'm going to be in your face at the timeline at half court and just mess with you, that DiVincenzo and Jaden and to an extent Ant and Julius Randle all did immediately. Plus, on top of that, Anthony Edwards knocking down a pair of threes in the first couple minutes. Jaden McDaniels hitting some threes early in this game. Julius Randle, I think, missed his first couple that were maybe ill-advised, but eventually made some threes. Naz Reid off the bench. Bones Highland in the first quarter, kind of closing that first quarter with a Bones flurry. Like, it was all Bones Highland late in the first quarter. The combination of 3-point barrage plus ridiculously physical and aggressive defense is demoralizing, even to the defending NBA champs. And that right there was Minnesota up 12, and guess what? They won by 12. It was the combination of, look, we've got 3-point shooters. We're going to launch. Minnesota attempted 16 more threes and made 11 more threes than OKC in this game. And that helped cover up the free throw issues. We'll talk about that. Some of the turnovers, the sloppy play. Minnesota had 20 turnovers in this game. All that stuff can get covered up if you make enough threes, and they did. My second of my 3 big things is just straight up Anthony Edwards, and more specifically, how he opened and closed the game. He hit 2 threes. Minnesota's first 2 field goals made in this game were Anthony Edwards 3-pointers, and he just looked 100% locked in. He hit a tough, like 16, 17 footer, like just beyond the free throw line early in the first quarter as well. I think he had like 8 points, 8 of the first like 11 or 12 that Minnesota had. And again, it was the aggressiveness. It was the tone. It was the, hey, I'm ready to go. He had a quieter second quarter. He got a little bit banged up after the Hartenstein screen in the early in the fourth quarter, I think. But then the close to the game, he hits, I think he hit a three, and then there was like the lefty bank that was basically a dagger at that point when he was getting pretty much triple teamed, rose up, hit a lefty bank shot from, I don't know, 12 feet or so on the left side of the lane. It was the open and the close. Like you look up and it's like, he had 26, 5 and 5. That's a good game. 26 on 17 shots is efficient. It was just a well-rounded game. 26 points on 17 shots, 4 of 10 on threes. Great, 40%, 4 of 5 at the line. You'd like him to get to the line a couple more times, but we'll take it. 5 rebounds, 5 assists, the 3 turnovers, fine. 2 steals and a block, a plus 24 in a game they won by 12, a game best plus 24. SGA, by the way, game worst minus 22. Just a professional Anthony Edwards performance. It wasn't an overwhelming, I'm going to shoot it every time I touch it. It wasn't a, it obviously didn't have to be a hero ball performance down the stretch because they were up double digits, but it was teetering just a bit, right? Like this thing was over 20 points early in the fourth quarter. OKC got it down. I think 13 was the closest they got it in the final frame. And Ant was just like, nah, no more. There was a big 3 by Nas. Actually, it was DiVincenzo that hit a big 3 in there. But Anthony Edwards was the open and the close like that. And that's exactly what the Wolves needed in this game. And a bunch of other guys did stuff in the middle. We'll talk Jaden McDaniels and studs and duds. He was fantastic. Rudy Gobert had some nice moments. Not like really everyone played well. It was, not an overwhelming Julius Randle performance, I guess, but Ant did what he needed to do at the start and at the finish to just make sure that his team got the victory. Those are my 3 big things: the defensive pressure, the way they opened the game shooting the basketball, and how Ant opened and closed the game. Other notes from this game: the free throw shooting, man, I don't know how you fix it when Gobert shoots so many of your team's free throws. I mean, players not named Rudy Gobert for the Wolves in this game shot 7 of 10, which isn't great. I think the team on the season is like 75%, so not great. But Rudy was 4 of 8. That means the team was 61% from the line. That number's tough. I mean, I think they came in 27th in the NBA in free throw percentage. That's not great. That matters in close games. It matters in the playoffs. And, Ant's a little below where he's been at for his career, but it's not a major concern for Ant. It's some of the other guys that you'd expect them to kind of boost that number a little bit. We may talk about it a little bit more next week, but I don't know what else there is to say. You just got to make free throws. And at some point, like your team is your team, but like Reid shouldn't go 2 of 4. And he missed, a couple critical ones. Well, they ended up not being critical, but it was things were just teetering a little in the fourth quarter. Like Nas has to step up and hit those. Rudy's got to go 6 of 8, not 4 of 8. Or at least 5 of 8, Rudy. Like he's shooting, I think, a career low at the free throw line. That continues to kind of just hang over this. Like, I think there's one game you can point to, and I don't remember which one it was, where it was like, all right, free throws are the reason this game was lost. Like the primary reason was free throw shooting. I hope there's not anymore. And then my other like side note thing is, hey, look, they got the Bones Highland performance, and ultimately he only made 3 threes, but they got that boost early in the first quarter. And by the way, he also had 5 of the Wolves' 20 turnovers in this game, or 5 of the 19 individual player turnovers. Not great. But like he was a plus 12. He made 3 threes. He hit a couple at the end of the first quarter when he needed to. And it's that shot in the arm that Bones is this is going to sound bad, but he's the worst version of that type of player that they need, right? Of the microwave offense, the instant offense off the bench. Bones Highland is like the worst playable version of that player, right? It's like what I'm trying to think of like the most recent examples. Like it's obviously what Rob Dillingham's supposed to be, like what Jalen Noel was supposed to be when Chris Finch thought he was going to be a rotation player. Like he's going to come in and get you 12 quick points. Like Bones can do that, but sometimes he doesn't. And sometimes he does it and he still turns it over 5 times like he did in this game, or he does it with terrible defense. And I thought he was fine defensively in this one. He did also have 4 offensive rebounds. It's just like a tornado. Like Bones Highland is just like a whirlwind when he gets into the game, and a lot of good and a lot of bad happens, but he's there. Like it's not a quiet performance. This is why the Wolves are likely to make a move in the next 6 days, because what happens when you don't get that flurry? Or what happens when the flurry is all bad and no good, which we've seen happen? Love Bones when he's on. And like he's not the reason they won this game, but he was part of that like strong close of the first quarter, because we've seen this game before play out where like the Wolves start hot, they have a bad close of the first quarter, a bad close of the first half, and then it lingers and it just kind of hangs over everything, and then they fall apart. And I thought Bones had some minutes where he really kind of lifted the team despite the turnovers. A lot of those I think were fourth quarter as the Thunder were starting to make that little bit of a push. But all that to say, the Bones role again, it's something we're tracking. The Bones Conley minutes, obviously Conley did not play, but we talked about this on yesterday's show after the Dallas game. Like that's a role. The hybrid Bones Conley minutes are minutes that we have to monitor over the final few games here before the deadline next Thursday. All right, let's close with individual studs and duds. We'll peek ahead at the weekend for the Wolves. We'll do all that here next to close out the show. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. It's absolutely the best game to be on FanDuel for. It's my favorite time to get on there and just have some fun with same-game parlays, whatever it is. Maybe you want to back the favorite, ride the underdog, or build your last football same-game parlay of the season. This is the game that everyone's been waiting for. It's where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, let's close with individual studs and duds from this one. Obviously, Anthony Edwards was the best player on the floor, hands down, not close, in this particular game. 26 on 17 shots, 4 of 10 on threes, 4 of 5 at the line, 5 boards, 5 assists, 3 turnovers with the amount of pressure OKC was putting on him and the amount of time he spent with the ball in his hands. By the way, I just noticed this. I mentioned earlier the Wolves had 20 turnovers and a lot were in garbage time. Rob Dillingham had 3 turnovers in 3 minutes in garbage time, and Béranger had one too. So 4 of their 20 turnovers were in the 3 minutes of garbage time. So I want to put that out there. Anyway, back to Ant. Ant had a great game. We talked about the open. We talked about the close. We talked about the overall professionalism that he played with in this game. He briefly lost his cool right before halftime when he was getting double teamed by, I can't remember, it was Wallace and Joe, or SGA was there initially. I think SGA actually hit him on the arm, which is why Ant wanted a foul call, and then he ran away, and then Ant pushed, I can't remember if it was Wallace or Joe, in the face, and it was an offensive foul on Ant. It was ridiculous. They reviewed it for a flagrant, the whole thing. I don't know if it was the technical, like after the play, quote unquote, but it was actually the act on the court, or if it was complaining after the fact. It seemed kind of crazy. I understand Ant's argument. He's obviously just got to not do that. And thankfully things didn't unravel completely there. I thought for sure SG was going to make the heave after the turnover, but he didn't. So anyway, great Ant performance, save for that one possession. Jaden McDaniels, awesome. I haven't talked enough about Jaden in the first 20 plus minutes of the show today. 21 points on 8 of 11, a perfect 5 of 5 outside the arc. He continues to just be like one of the best 15 3-point shooters in the entire NBA this season. It's crazy. 4 boards, 4 assists, 2 turnovers, a pair of blocks, both very early in this game. Very impressive, again, tone-setting blocks from Jaden McDaniels. Go back to that first quarter. The physical defense on the perimeter, the tone set, the threes by Anthony Edwards, the blocks by Jaden McDaniels, the perimeter defense by DiVincenzo, and honestly, Randle too. Just so impressive. And Jaden was a massive piece of that. So he's also a stud in this game. And you got to go Naz Reid. A key first half stretch for Naz too. He knocked down a tough 3. I think it was also first quarter, like fading to his left on the move, just above the break on the left side of the floor, hits a tough 3. A couple possessions later, hits a floater from about 10 feet. Just a crazy kind of sequence for Naz. And he finishes with 18 points on 6 of 10, 4 of 8 on threes, 2 of 2 on twos, 2 of 4 at the line, 7 boards, 2 assists, a pair of turnovers, and 1 block. He was also a plus 11 off the bench. So a great Naz Reid performance. And really, really good. And honestly, like, I don't have any duds in this game. I know Randall's line didn't look great. He had 4 steals. We talked about his physical defense. He had some physical offense, a nice and one mixed in there. Only 13, 5, and 5 but he had the 4 steals and a block. So 5 stocks from Julius Randle. Nobody else had more than 3. We'll take it. Jalen Clark. 7 points for Jalen Clark's a lot of points for Jalen Clark. He hit a big 3, missed a 3, then followed his shot like he's in middle school and got a layup out of it. Really good. Like, also, he made a couple of other like non-box score plays. Like there was the bounce pass I think it was a bounce pass he threw to Nas in the corner. He was kind of stuck under the basket. Clark was. Threw like a wraparound bounce pass hanging over the baseline for an assist. And then late in the game, same deal on the opposite sideline where he's kind of falling out of bounds and had to jump and one-hand whip it to somebody. I can't remember who it was, DiVincenzo or somebody for a 3. He had a couple of those plays. I think that one was a hockey assist. The first one was an actual assist. Like a great Jalen Clark performance. I thought he was really good. I know he's like the only guy that didn't play garbage time, that didn't have a positive plus minus. It was a 0. There were some rough moments offensively, but in general, like you need 15 minutes of Jalen Clark. You just do. Like he's just a tough, hard-nosed defender, and he's starting to begin to understand how to make the right plays on offense instead of simply shoot corner threes. And he hadn't made a 3 in a couple of weeks. But he made that corner 3 in this one and then turned the miss from above the break into an offensive rebound and a layup. So good performance from him. Let's see. Who did we talk about? We talked about DiVincenzo's defense. He was only 11 points on 13 shots. So another bad shooting night for DiVincenzo, but he's always been streaky. I'm sure it's going to bounce back again soon here. Maybe we have enough time before the end of the season where it goes up and then it goes down again and it peaks by the time we get to the playoffs. I think that perhaps that'll be the timing we'll get. That's everybody. Like, good overall performance from all these guys individually. A lot of fun to see the Wolves get back on the right side of things and win their 3rd straight game after losing 5 straight. I mean, we have to. This is Friday's show, so there's one more game this weekend before, let's see. So the Wolves play Saturday, but not Sunday because they're in the every other day situation. So Monday's show will be a bit of a hybrid post-game pod and getting you ready for the week. But as of right now, Minnesota's in 5th place in the West. They're a half game up on LA. They are a half game behind Houston. And Houston has been playing a little better again here recently, despite the loss to San Antonio 2 nights ago. They won last night, so they stayed ahead of Minnesota. They beat Atlanta. So the Wolves are a half game behind Houston, who they also don't have the tiebreaker against, and the Rockets do have a better differential. They're 2.5 behind Denver for the 3rd seed and 3 behind San Antonio for the 2 seed. All those teams have won now a little bit this week. And Minnesota's a half game clear of the Lakers and the Suns, who are tied in 6 and 7. So still kind of a log jam in the 4 to 7 range. All those teams within a game of each other. But so important for the Wolves to come out with this win. They get the Grizzlies on Saturday at Memphis, which coming off of this game, I don't know. Here's hoping that there's not a massive letdown. They get the Grizzlies twice, though, Saturday and Monday. It's the same thing that Golden State was supposed to have been in Minnesota last weekend before the postponement, and they ended up playing Sunday, Monday. But the Wolves are in Memphis on Saturday and Monday. They really need to win both of those games. It's easy to split those, those double matchups. But I mean, to build a bit of a winning streak, because then you go at Toronto, which is difficult, but obviously winnable. And then home for New Orleans, Clippers, Hawks, Portland, Dallas. Like, the schedule's gotten tougher. It lets up just a little bit now. There is a back-to-back a week from this weekend, but for the most part, these are all winnable games for the Timberwolves upcoming. They're going to be favored in probably all of them. I mean, really, they should be. I'm sure they'll be favored at Toronto, even though they've got a good record. Like, it's still the Eastern Conference. You got to go down to at Denver on March 1st. That's a month away before you find a game the Wolves aren't likely to be favored in. So they have to make their hay when they have the chance, and that's now. And this sort of a performance, not so much, the bulk of the game against Dallas the night before, but this performance on a nightly basis is going to lead to a lot of wins in the month of February for the Wolves. All right. Big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. A reminder that if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Wolves ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonwolves.supercast.com to join the club. And for those of you on video, after this episode will send you to the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. If you're listening on audio, make sure that you make your second listen NBA game night on Locked On NBA. Reminder that Locked On Wolves is part of the very same Locked On Network, your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.